Appreciate it, Bradley. Thank you.
Please be joined this time by one of the best O-line coaches anywhere, my man Christian Hunnicutt. Coach, thanks so much for joining me.
Absolutely, man. Appreciate you having me. Thank you so much.
And you guys done a fantastic job you've done a fantastic job for a long time. But in the last couple of years, I've just been so impressed with the growth of the team at Collins Hill a couple years ago and last year at Gainesville. So excited to see what you're going to talk about with this 12-month program because, I've really seen it happen for you guys the last few years, man. So take it away. I'm going to get out your way.
Yeah. First off, thank you for having me, Chris. I appreciate it. Everything that I've gotten here, I have stolen from someone, and so what I'm just going to do is I'm just going to talk about, from the end of the season, all the way through, hopefully, a long, long playoff run. Kind of how we break up a season in terms of just developing offensive line in regards to just strictly, offensive linemen. So really the offensive line season for our guys divided up into 5 parts. So we're going to rush in the weight room, get them as strong as we can, get them explosive from January through spring break. And then from after post spring break through, early May, we're trying to get ready for spring practice. The next big part of our season that we really, really, really going to put a lot of time, a lot of intensity, be really, really intentional about developing kids is spring practice. And those 10 practice dates are absolutely critical in terms of developing our kids, trying to make sure that we're getting as many kids as possible ready to play. But so spring practice is a massive, it's unbelievably important how huge those 10 days are, not just for the getting ready for the fall, but also developing depth. Kids that you got to develop, that are a year or two away. So spring practice is unbelievably important. Then June through July is our next segment where we are heavy, 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 obviously in the weight room, and we're going to do all the team practices. But also in June, July, what we will do is we'll find as good a competition as we can, and we will go and we will have offensive line, defensive line, pass rush, pass pro, as much as we can get with that. And then obviously the last segment is, kick off the season from our early season scrimmages all the way through the playoffs. Now, with that said, I think it's vitally important that, you fill your funnel and that you have to load up your calendar with as many things as possible for developing, offensive linemen. So whether it's weight room, whether it's making sure that, before spring practice, the guys hear the speech about the choices of people that you're hanging around, making sure they're all going to a camp, exposing them to college camps, etc. So you're only as good as your calendar. And the biggest thing is we have to fill our funnel. In terms of developing linemen, you have to fill your funnel and never ever assume that, oh man, we're done enough, we've done enough. We have to make sure that we're filling our funnel and we're developing not just as a player, but also making sure that as a group, the offensive linemen should have the highest GPA. As a group, those are the guys that are going to be there day in, day out. So we have to make sure, because of so many things that they do are not just natural, that are taught, that we have to make sure that we fill up our calendar year round. So in January, what we'll do in January first is I'll have a postseason meeting with the head coach, and then we'll just discuss the offensive line as a unit, all the way from the oldest kids down to the youngest kids, person by person. And what we'll have is a sheet entitled The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. Here are things throughout the year that we're pretty efficient at, that, those are hat plays, those are hat protections, those are hat screens. We can hang our hat on those things. The next thing that we'll focus on is the bad things that, that we have a chance to be good at, but we have to tweak, we have to modify. And then the last is the ugly things that obviously cost us during the season. And then after that, we'll have individual meetings as we go through that, with our kids. So I'll share the good, the bad, and the ugly with the head coach, and then I'll also share the good, the bad, the ugly with our kids. So when I have our postseason offensive line grades, person by person with the head coach, the first thing that we're going to stress is competitive toughness. And competitive toughness just means Do you enjoy the fight? Are you a person that gets excited, that wants to see great competition? And to me, it starts with competitive toughness. And do you have a kid that's going to, that will not tap out? So we start with competitive toughness. The next thing when we talk about grades, the head coach, is the next category will be fundamentals, technique, pad level, speed of play. The third will be, are they a violent, physical player? Can they punch? Do they play through the whistle? Are they hitting a block or are they hitting a hurt? The next is football IQ, and how fast can they absorb? How much can they carry to the field? What's their modality of learning? Are they a high rep guy? Are they a player that they have to have a lot of tests? And the last grade that we go through with our head coach is, we call it being a professional. And how does that lineman handle his job day to day? And then the last part in terms of debriefing from the season is we'll have we'll meet up with the parents. And it could be mom, could be dad, mom and dad, whoever the adult is in charge, that's who we'll meet with. And we'll go through the same thing in terms of, their grades. So here's the exact copy that we gave coach. So there's the good, things that we did well throughout the season, the bad, and there you see the ugly at the bottom, things that we have to get better at, or they're going to really, really get us next year. Now, here is the sheet that I shared with coach, and there's a letter grade for competitive toughness. There's a letter grade for fundamentals, pad level technique, violent punch, football IQ, and then professional. That's each kid. That's every offensive lineman that is a varsity or JV player for us. So the next step in January is meeting with our strength and conditioning coach. And so obviously, everybody's going to get stronger, everybody's going to work out. Then we'll categorize each person as, is he a gain or is he a lose? So how many calories a day does that kid need to eat? That's the first thing. So our strength and conditioning coach will set up their caloric intake for that, for that specific player. And then he'll get the macros, he'll do all those things. Also, after we identify each lineman, is he a gain or a lose kid? Then we talk about their deficiencies. Is he a kid that's got stiff hips? Is he a kid that has an injury that he's got to work through? Starting in January, regardless of, time is irrelevant, but every day after our run, every day after our lift, all right, we will meet as a group. And it could be for 30 seconds, it could be for 10 minutes. But I think it's important for the offensive line unit to be together every day as a group and just understand more or less, this is what we have to get done. This is what we have to, achieve the next day, the next week. I think it's important when you meet with your offensive lineman that I think you have to parrot, you have to echo, and you have to repeat the message that the head coach has sent out. I think it's, the kids that you're going to struggle with, I think when you lose a kid, so obviously it's not going to be the kid that plays. The kid that you're going to have to really work to keep in your program are the younger players who cannot see a year or two down the road where they're going to be playing on Friday nights. So I think it's really important that you affirm the younger players, you find something to be positive about, and you build those guys up, because obviously we need to always keep our numbers high. We'll always try to find a time where a player can affirm other players in the group. For us, we have constant people coming through our facility. We have a lot of people come through our facilities. Either we have community members, we have high school coaches, college coaches. We just have a lot of people. We're blessed to have a lot of people want to come by and see our kids, see the facilities. So I think you have to always echo to your kids, to your players, make sure that, the locker room is clean. We have a model locker. Then we always have every Monday, Friday, we always have where we at on the chart about grades. So for us, as soon as the kid starts getting in that low B and that C range, that's when our bells start, really going off. So we want to try to keep everybody at a B or higher. And obviously, we're trying to push, we're trying to maximize everything we can, and obviously echo things about making choices and, show me your friends and I'll show you your future. Another thing that, you tell our kids is, the person that you're with is either going to be a fountain or they're going to be a drain. So with that said, we really, really, really try to harp on our kids about choices and understand that all choices have consequences. Also, at the end of January, we'll send the off-season letter home to our kids, and this year we were fortunate enough to play in the state championship game. We came up short. So the letter that we send this year is a letter challenging them, that we have to close the gap. And we have to be a better football team in every regard to get back there and win. Now, in February, we'll start our unit meetings. Our unit meetings will start, and so we'll distribute folders to every kid, and it's a little bit of a meritocracy in that the guys, the players, they have earned their 3-ring binder, and when we have our meetings in February, we call it the Big Red Culture, and the biggest thrust upon or message that the kids will hear over and over again in regards to our Big Red Culture is trust. And we as coaches have to trust them that they're going to do what we say, and they have to trust us that we're going to work at our craft and we're going to work at developing them. So trust is a message that is hammered into our kids starting in February. The next thing after trust is we start talking about our standard. And our standard is we are constantly chasing best. And we're going to be relentless about chasing best grades, best attitude, best conduct in the schools, etc. And then, for us, because we are not, we don't just, we have some big kids like everybody else does, but we're just not a very big group up front. So the message to our kids is here's what we have to win with. We have to win with fundamentals. We have to win with effort, and we have to win with toughness. So trust, our standard of being best, chasing best, being relentless about chasing best. And then our kids have to know that our recipe to win is fundamentals, effort, and toughness. We have on Wednesdays during our week, we train 4 days a week, Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. And on Wednesdays, we have what Coach Niblett calls mindset training. And prior to the kids walking into mindset training, we'll have our strength coaches outside the door, and we have weigh-in Wednesdays, and we kind of chart week to week where they're at weigh-ins, and it's entered into an Excel document. Also in February, our accountability groups will be drafted. And that is such a powerful tool to make sure that our kids are doing the right things. They're on top of their grades. Zero, obviously, we want zero issues in regards to school discipline, being low maintenance, etc. But I also think, it behooves anyone that is doing the accountability groups that you have to communicate the really, really high draft picks, but I think you also have to communicate the very, very low draft picks, because obviously, if you're drafted high by your peers, if you're drafted high by your coaches as an accountability group leader, you're doing a lot of things right. But also, I think you have to communicate to those kids who were drafted low on the board, because there's a trust issue there. Either they don't trust that you're going to show up every day and work, or they don't trust that you're going to make the right choices. But from a trust standpoint, you have become a low draft pick, and that's something that you have to address. Starting at the end of February, we have an offensive line handbook. We give those to our kids. They have them all either in their folder or their binder. And the offensive line handbook essentially says, here's pretty much from a broad perspective, playing offensive line at Gainesville looks like this. Here's the expectation. Here are the drills that we're going to do. Here's the way we handle ourselves on the field. I mean, it pretty much lays out everything from a big picture macro standpoint. In February, we'll also distribute a player evaluation form. All right. And the player evaluation form essentially encompasses every trait that is part of our DNA, our Big Red culture. And the kids will grade themselves. And then we ask the parents to sign them. So there's a picture of what you see of what our Big Red culture is. And the standards or the traits at the bottom are basically the foundations of everything that we're trying to build, starting with the person all the way through the player. Character, confident, connection, consistent, communicate, compete, and then champion. So there you see the player evaluation form. And like we said, everything begins with trust. So from a character standpoint, I mean, it'll go from, obviously education, understand the big picture of how do grades impact the football program. And then, after the character, football character, athletic character. So then we measure their toughness, their discipline, and their conditioning. And then from there, we'll work to competence and the connection piece of our foundation. And are they making the right choices? What kind of attitude do they bring to the weight room, to the practice field, to the locker room every day? How do they handle in terms of connection? Are they a player? Are they a player that really tries to actively seek out people that are positive? Do they try to provide leadership? And then the next trait that we'll gauge is communication. The first part of communication that coach really emphasized is being gracious and having a spirit of having gratitude for people that are out there trying to do things for you. And there you see consistency. And then the last component of our evaluation form are our offensive line musts. So if you want to get on the field, here's what you have to be able to do. Okay, so that way there's something concrete, that every kid knows. If I could do all these things at an efficient level or higher, I have a chance to play, regardless of grade, regardless of height, regardless of weight, whatever. If I can check these off, we tell the kids, then you have a chance to play. One of the biggest things, so when we have our unit meetings, we talk about the word trust. And in regards to trust, the foundation of every relationship, whether it's a team, whether it's a school, whether it's a business organization, whether it's a marriage, whatever, the foundation of every relationship is trust. And the elite teams, they understand that they're all going to have talented, committed players and coaches. They're all going to have great community support. The elite teams are going to, they're going to put in work year round. They're going to have really good facilities. But the biggest component that the elite teams, the championship teams have, is that they trust each other. Okay. And you have an evidence that you're trustworthy, and you have a track record that you're trustworthy. And so what we ask our kid is, what is your track record? Because at the end of the day, those offensive linemen have to be able to look to the left and look to the right and understand, hey, that guy's a really tough, competitive guy. I know he's going to be here every day, and he's going to lay it on the line. The next part in terms of how do you build trust, when we tell our kids is consistent. Do you say what you're going to do? You do, and do you say what you're going to do? Do you have consistent work ethic? Do you have consistent energy? And do you have an attitude that is positive day in and day out? And then, the next stage in how do you build trust is that you have to be honest with each other. You have to be open, be willing to have the difficult conversations with your teammates. And then, you have to be transparent. Do you tell the truth, and do you accept responsibility if something goes wrong? So beginning in March, we'll start our 4x1s with our offensive linemen after school. And our deal is we don't want to keep them there. I mean, we want our kids to look forward to spring practice. We want them to look forward to summer practice. We want them to look forward to the season. So we're not going to burn them up. We will never go more than 30 minutes. And we're looking for quality reps, not quantity reps. And we build from the ground up starting in March. So from a pure blocking standpoint, our most important task in the month of March is we're going to be fanatical about first step. And that we're going to work on loading our foot, and we're going to work on explosion off the ball, chest on thighs, nose over toes. I mean, for a while in March. For the first 2 weeks, we're not going to go do anything beyond the first 2-3 steps, but we want to make sure we have mastered explosion off the ball. So one thing that we'll do is we'll have our linemen have one leg over a board, the other knee on the back, behind the board, staggered, and we're going to work on just taking a short, powerful vertical 6-inch step, and then we'll work at 45 degrees. And then we are going to constantly harp strain, and we're going to also harp on tempo. And what does tempo mean? Tempo is how fast you're moving when the ball is not in play. All championship teams, all elite teams have unbelievable tempo. All championship teams, all elite teams, you can hear strain. The question you always get, what is strain? Strain is concentrated, deliberate effort. That's what strain is. So we try to teach strain, and we try to teach tempo in first step in the month of March. So from the classroom standpoint, we teach our players how we grade effort. And so what we do is we found a way to quantify effort. So we will quantify effort into three parts, E, S, and F, and that is explosion off the ball, speed of play, and finish. So Chris Parker is the right guard, and we're doing his grade sheet. So there will be a category for effort, and then there will be a category for assignment. So on the effort part, there'll be three letters in a column, E, S, and F. Chris Parker, right guard. All right, let's watch it. They're running buck. All right, E for explosion off the ball. Check off S for speed of play. And they're running buck, and he's the backside guard wrapping, and he has maintained his block through the play. So when we grade effort, there are three check marks that you have to get play by play, and that is E, S, and F: explosion off the ball, speed of play, and finish. I was blessed as a coach to be around a lot of great coaches, and I was a really good note taker. And one thing that I learned from a legendary coach in Georgia, his name is Mike Hodges, said that if you teach effort, if you teach kids to play on the edge, you will always have a job, always. And so it's always been my belief as an offensive line coach that effort, it starts with effort. In the summertime, in the spring, when we watch film, all we will grade is effort. And then we will slowly start, trying to piece by piece get the efficiency of or the play better, making sure that we're, producing and finishing the play in every way. But we have to make sure that we're playing very, very hard. And, the execution will come, the execution of play will come, but it starts with effort. The alpha and omega of everything is going to be playing with effort. And I think a lot of times in coaches today, because you have access to so much material, I think people have become, almost too quick to try to run a play. Here at Gainesville, we have scheme like everybody else does. But if it is an expensive play, we will not, and we're not just going to put it in just because it works that week. And Mike Bobo's dad, Mike Bobo just got named offensive coordinator again at the University of Georgia's dad was one of my mentors, and I always said that scheme coaches are a dime a dozen. But the guys who play tough, hard-nosed, fundamental football that can put a nasty edge on them, and the guys that play through the whistle, those are the coaches that, are always going to have a job. In March, what we really try to harp on in our offensive line handbook is the mental makeup of an offensive lineman. And then we'll find teaching tape for the previous season, and we will do a good and a bad of teaching tape of our base play is inside zone. And we will work on, making sure that our kids understand here's what is acceptable in inside zone, and here's the parts that we need to clean up. And the last part in March, in terms of finding clips from last year, we call it our standard. And these are cut ups, these are plays of second and third effort plays where our kids see what fanatical effort looks like. This is what extreme effort looks like. This is what effort like playing through the whistle. This is what nasty, physical, hard-nosed, relentless football looks like. And so those are things I think those are important for our kids to see that. So in terms of effort, so our first criteria in regards to effort is explosion off the ball. So we try to teach and try to harp on as the explosive first step. Anytime you can give a kid a visual of this is what explosion looks like, those are things that kids can understand and see. Obviously, like everybody else, everybody today is hyper visual. So, we try to teach strain. We want to load our guns on the first step, and then the player's helmet's got to snap back. So the next criteria of speed of play, or effort rather, is speed of play. And we want to be a combination of a tractor and a wrecking ball. We want to get short, powerful steps in the ground, and the power must go into the ground. The biggest thing I think our kids have to learn is they have to punish themselves every step and don't pace. And then obviously in terms of speed of play, the hardest part for any offensive lineman is redirecting with a defensive player. The last part is the finish. And what we try to tell our kids is we want the official to come over and tell Coach Niblett, Coach, stop on the whistle. Tell him to stop on the whistle. And it is okay. The guys know it is okay if I take a butt chewing from Coach, make him stop, etc. But I think our kids have to set a tone, offensive line-wise. Our kids have to set a tone early, especially that we're going to play hard and we're going to play physical and we're going to play through the whistle. And so during practice, I mean, our kids know that, we have to make sure that we're finishing through the whistle, and it is okay for everybody to understand that, we're gonna get a warning during the game, and that's okay. Now, the next segment of the 12-month deal is April through May. So our most important task in April or May is teaching, repeating, preaching, finding every tool possible to understand what speed of play is. So when we go speed of play versus, some of our defensive linemen, we're thinking leg drive, leg drive, leg drive, stick and stay, and we will put our offensive linemen and defensive linemen in a circle. All right, we start hands and feet on the ground, and then we start forehead to forehead. And the rule in the circle is there are no throws. You have to sink your hips. You have to work to get pad under pad. You have to work to get your hands back inside. Okay, so when we start right here with the defensive lineman, that's them just kind of getting ready to get set to fit up. And what will happen is, because I don't have the video, but they will end up being forehead to forehead, and you have to shoot your hands inside, run your feet, and then there's a circle on the outside. I know it's hard to tell. There's a circle that you're trying to push them outside the circle. Also in April and May, what we'll do is we'll have something called the hot seat with our unit, with our kids. And so the hot seat really is for a chance first for our older kids to get up there. They talk about how much does Gainesville football mean to them. Okay. Tell us about your background. Tell us about your mom. Tell us about your dad. How did you get to Gainesville? How long have you been here? What's been the best part of playing high school football? What's something difficult what kind of difficult circumstance have you had in your life that you had to work through? So it's amazing that once these kids can hear each other talk and they learn how to listen, and these kids open up about things, there's a common bond that forges amongst them. They get really, really close and understand, man, I've had that happen too. Unfortunately, in society today, Coach talks about a lot of times, like he talks about a man crisis. There's a lot of kids today that have families that have gotten, there've been some issues through there. So I think kids use that as a time to bond with themselves and say, man, things haven't been great either. And so that unit cohesion that offensive line coaches all have to have is unit cohesion. I believe that's when it starts in our unit meetings, especially in the hot seat. Now, also in April, the end of May, as we're approaching spring practice, we're going to document, and everybody's going to share with each other every offensive lineman's goals for spring practice moving forward. When we grade spring practice, we are looking for process-oriented goals, not outcome-related goals. So in terms of process-oriented, hey, I'm going to make sure I'm 15, 20 minutes early, and I'm going to go ahead and activate on my own and work on my deficiencies for practice. Another process-oriented goal, hey, I'm going to make sure that, I'm getting the right amount of calories, especially it's spring practice. So we really, really try to harp on process-oriented goals in spring practice, not, hey, I'm going to start. All right, now spring practice, the next segment of the season, which is those 10 days are unbelievably important because they set the tone for the fall. So we will always have a morning walkthrough, and the offensive line will always have a post-practice walkthrough. So in the post-practice walkthrough, we will always install and walk through the next day's installation play. And then also, when we do our post-practice walkthrough, we'll do a make five, take five with our head coach. So we will start at the goal line, and I'm going to be on the side, and the head coach is going to call a play, right? And we're going to run the play full tilt on air versus bags. And we want to get to the 50-yard line. So it's make five, take five. So that's just a part of practice where even though, the helmet, shoulder pads are off, the kids still have to finish. The kids still have to concentrate. Now, we give written tests after week 1 and week 2 of spring practice. We'll also give them a tip sheet every day of what our goals as a unit are that day, a drill list, and what we're installing. In spring practice, I think is really important if you're coaching an offensive line, that your younger offensive linemen have to get half the reps and understand that it is going to look sloppy. The execution by your young kids is not going to be great. But what you're always trying to do is you're trying to always coach next year's team, and that you have trying to build depth down the road for your players, understanding that, look, you're a chin strap away from having to play. And I think there's comfort in a big crowd. And just like in the restaurant business, a crowd draws a crowd. There's comfort in those groups. And when you see a big group of kids together, they feel, that they've got their own little team within a team. So that's why I think it's vitally important that you have to give the younger guys reps in the spring. You don't want to lose them. So here's the example of our tip sheet. So one thing that we're always going to harp to our kids is making sure that we have, take as many vicarious reps when you're not in. Make sure that we're always going to preach hat speed, getting our head across the line. And there you see our drill order and individual that day, and there's our install. So the spring most important task is you only have one opportunity to establish your culture. Okay, that's it. You have one opportunity, and that's those 10 days in spring practice. So we will grade effort and we grade physicality. That's it. And just understand that the execution is going to get better. Post practice, always, always find an opportunity to praise, find an opportunity to reward. And once again, we will only grade player effort in the spring. During our inter squad scrimmage and our spring scrimmage, everybody's going to play. All the linemen, from the best to the least experienced, they're all going to play. Again, execution is not going to be to our standard. We can live with that because we know we're thinking getting kids, as many kids in the group as possible, build depth, and the execution is going to get better. Play the long game in the spring and summer. Play the long game. Now, with that said, we want to get kids, our execution has to be better, et cetera. But at some point, the kids have to also, it's incumbent upon them that they also make sure that they get their rules right and they understand the keys to success in every play. A quote that I heard from Randy McPherson about, make sure you're choosing the right kids to get out there is a dumb one will get you beat faster than a bad one. So that's why I go back to, I think it's important that you test your kids as often as possible so they can repeat back to you what their rule is per assignment. When we have a returning player from the previous season, their practice goals have to be really, really high. We have a kid, that we feel really, really high about. Hey, you got to get this many on the ground today. There can be obviously no pressures. We have to get so many plays where we're, cleaning out the pocket. So I think that you have to give players a specific goal in practice that they have to hit. There's a number that they have to hit in practice, and that keeps them engaged and it lets them have a game within the practice itself. And then if the kids don't hit their numbers, if they don't hit their numbers, then we have some post-practice remediation. I think it's important, again, keep your numbers high. We don't want to lose anybody in the spring. So we will feed them on Fridays, whether it's donuts or Chick-fil-A. I think you have to use every opportunity you can to reward a kid for second and third effort. But now it has to be honest, it has to be authentic and genuine second and third effort. Anytime we get a kid on the ground, that's something that I think you got to reward. I worked for a guy named Dexter Wood, the guy who built Buford football, and he preached to me, you get what you reward. And if you want kids to be violent, you want them to be physical, reward them. You want them to have great grades, reward them. The next section, segment 4 of the season, is June and July. So what we're going to do this year, and I've never done it before, I'm looking forward to it, is we're going to take the offensive linemen on a retreat. We're going to find a cabin somewhere. Who knows how many beds are going to be there, whatever. Bring your air mattresses, but we're going to have what we call at Gainesville High School. Coaches coined this phrase and using it. We're going to have a shared experience, and just the offensive linemen to get away. Go tubing, what all offensive linemen do, they eat. And then we're going to really try to, use that time to bond. We're going to do a program called Pass the Helmet, where the kids talk about themselves, talk about what this year means to them. For those seniors that go to our retreat, we're going to get the senior parents to write a letter and just basically share it with them. Parent affirming them, telling them how proud they are, and really like a challenge to make this senior year as special as it can be. And then we're going to review the offensive line handbook one more time. The next part of June and July is we're going to go pass rush, pass pro, and we're going to do that at least twice a week with other schools, getting good quality reps, against other teams. And we're not trying to get a trillion reps. We want a video. We want to slow it down, teach it, but we want to go against good competition. Once again, our younger players are going to get half the reps in the summertime for, obviously coaching next year's team, but also making them feel that they have a value this year. They're not just going to hold bags all year. Towards the end of the summer, end of June, rather, we're going to go to offensive line camp. And then our pre-practice schedule from June and July all the way through the playoffs is our pre-practice focus is, we don't spend a whole lot of time stretching. So our pre-practice focus is we will run through all our screens with our receivers at least 3/4 speed before practice. And we're working on all our screens with our wide receivers. That is our pre-practice warm-up. And then post-practice, we always have a 5-minute stretch. Our most important task in the month of June and July on Mondays, we focus on first step. Tuesdays, explosion off the ball. Wednesdays, our biggest, most important task is we focus on pad level. And Thursdays is kind of, we put it all together, and it's hands, helmet, placement, and it's pretty much full tilt football. Now, starting with August through the playoffs, in the scrimmage, make yourself play the young offensive lineman, make yourself play the long game, and focus on grading effort and focus on grading physicality. Because once you get that checked off, now you can let up off the gas a little bit, and now let's focus a little bit more time on execution. But if a kid is not going to play hard, you'll lose the game really fast. And the message to our kids, if you make an execution mistake in the spring, if you make an execution mistake in the summer, if you make an execution mistake in the fall scrimmage, the execution mistakes belong to me. Now, we can't repeat them, but they do belong to me. And then we start fixing them. During the regular season, what we'll have is a sheet that's a point of emphasis and correction sheet from the previous week. And then we'll go back to our post and pregame walkthroughs. Our daily offensive line accountability sheet consists of first step, too high, loafs, and quarterback pressures. In our unit meetings, what we'll do, we'll always distribute our grade sheets and our offensive lineman of the week. So here is our point of emphasis in our correction sheet that we have to make sure that we're getting right. That these things have to be checked off for the next week. So that's our point of emphasis, and we give these out, basically twice a week. So when they get the grade sheet, hey, we have a little bit of a catalog. Here are the main train wrecks that we've got to fix. And then Wednesday, we know, hey, it's Wednesday. Everybody needs to be in bed 9:30 at the latest. You're going to play on the sleep, the meals in your system Wednesday and Thursday. So that's our point of emphasis in our correction sheet. Here's our copy of our offensive line grade sheet. So we will grade effort. Okay, then we'll have an assignment grade. All right, then we will chart dominations or knockdowns, COTPs for clean out the pocket. Then we'll also give them a grade or a number of too highs where the pad level is way too high, not acceptable pad level. And then we will also grade how many pressures they might have given up. I think it's important that you have to highlight those kids that are doing something well. So the domination of that week was by our converted offensive lineman. He was a linebacker that became offensive lineman, Stacey Hopkins. And then we also, again, trying to reward being physical is our clean out of the pocket of the week. We had 2 kids that did a great job there. So here is an example of our accountability sheet. So what you see, here's our loafs. So on play 6, Payne had 1 loaf. On play 8, Noe had a loaf. On play 9, Jamel had a loaf. And then the next thing, what we're going to chart is our 2 highs. So on play 2, play 4, and play 1, Green had a 2 high. So each segment of the accountability sheet has a remediation attached to it. Also, we'll just always say, hey, this is what our quick little pre-practice warm-up before we get with the wide receivers. And then also, what you can also see for number 2, here's the things that we're going to focus on in our fundamental periods. So Tuesday, again, we'll have a post walkthrough. After school, we'll have a unit meeting. We'll go through our accountability sheets once again. On Wednesdays, we have what's called No Sweat Wednesday, which is it's a mental day. It's a mental day. There's no sweat. We don't want a whole lot of movement. It's a purely mental day where we have no busts, no missed assignments, no errors. I think it's important during the season that you have to evaluate yourself So in terms of what am I going to look at as an offensive line coach? So after 5 games, hey coach, when I meet with Coach Niblett, coach, here's kind of where I think we're at halfway through the season, and you have to be brutally honest with yourself. So the criteria that I'm going to look at, because I think these things are important to our head coach, are fundamentals. Are we playing with great effort? Are we tough? Are we executing? And are we handling ourselves in a professional manner? So a score of 1, we would put you in the boyhood category, the quitter category, or a losing season category. A score of 2, that would be you've graduated from boyhood to now childhood. A score of 3 is you graduate from quitter to camper, and now a score of 3 to get you a region championship. All right, a score of 5, now you've went from boyhood, childhood, all the way to manhood. You've went from the quitter stage, climbing a mountain, the camper stage of climbing a mountain. Now you've a climber. Have you attained the top of the mountain? And a score of 5 is a state championship. On Thursdays, that is a full speed day. And our reps are full speed with the defensive line. Our most important task on Thursday is we will get under the chute versus our defensive line, and it is full tilt. And we're going to work base blocks, and we're going to work combo blocks. Full tilt under the chute versus our D line, and it is live. Our unit meetings on Thursday, we will give them a written test. They have to come to my classroom, and we grade it. And then on Thursdays, everyone eats. Everyone eats. And anybody that achieve our standard of physicality or our standard of effort will eat in addition to whatever feed them that day. And there you see a copy of our offensive line test. I think it's important that when you give an offensive lineman a test, I think it's important that you also put things in your offensive line test that your head coach has said to them repeatedly. And I think they have to parrot that back to you. They have to echo back what the head coach has stated. On game days, we eat breakfast as a team. I think it's important the whole offensive line unit sits together. I think everybody has to lock in. It's not time to play. It's not time to laugh. Obviously you don't need it to be, martial law, but in the same vein, I think everybody does have to show that there's a sense of urgency, that they're locked in on the game. And then at the breakfast, we'll go around the table and we'll talk about what's your individual goal and what's your unit goal for today. When we do our walkthrough, obviously the goal is 100% assignments. But the biggest thing when we do our walkthrough is they have to scream their calls, scream it. So I know that they're making it. They're just not hoping they're making the right call. During the game on Fridays, I think it's important that you don't battle your kids during the game when you're watching the video under the tent. If it's an execution mistake, hey, we just got to focus. Let's make sure we're communicating. But the only times that we will battle our players if it's a lack of effort or if it's a lack of toughness. Obviously, if it's a team that you're better than, then obviously you have to be harder than. But if you're playing a great team, if you're playing a really talented team, you have to weather the storm. You have to find something to be positive about, and find something good to say. Hey, let's just play the next play. Because kids will read your body language. If they feel like you've given up on them or they feel like the game's out of reach, they will tank. We will grade film on Saturdays. We post grades on Sundays. And that's all I got, Coach.
Man, that was fantastic. And I like I like that so much of it was something you're doing outside of what you practice. We got into several. I mean, I've had probably 5 or 6 of the best O-line coaches in Georgia, you included, doing this. This has been awesome. But it's been so different watching each of you because you do all those things. You could go a whole nother couple hours on individual everyday drills, pass pro. You know what I mean? You need that too. But there were so many things there that if somebody runs a different offense than you guys, if they may have been a defensive coach and watched and picked up something that they could do. So, man, that was good. And I knew it was going to be, but like always, man, really impressed with you. And if I can help you anyway, you know how to get a hold of me.
Man, appreciate you having me on, Coach. Thank you for everything you do for football, man. This is awesome what you do for high school football. It really is.
I appreciate it, man.
I mean, you're a huge asset for all the ball coaches out here. I mean, what we all went through and stuff like that. So,
yeah.
Like, it ain't just you're some guy behind the keyboard. Like you've done it all. You've lined the fields. You picked
Done
them
it
up.
all.
You've taken them home. You've done it all. So thank you so much for what you do for coaches. I mean that. Thank you
I
so much.
appreciate it, man. It means a lot. You take care of my boy Ty Max.
No doubt. No doubt. Absolutely.
See you, coach.
See you, man. Bye.